Hello, my name is Linda and I'm the brand ambassador for Needle Creations. Today I wanted to show you how to work up our adorable crochet kit, Starry the Unicorn. So this kit includes everything you need to work up Starry. Starry is a kit that you can purchase if you want to work up and crochet your very own unicorn. So when you unbox your crochet kit, you will get everything that's included here. So there is the 100% polyester fiber fill, and then you see all of the other products are inside this bag. You have yarn, a 3.5mm crochet hook, a tapestry needle, and your instructions. When you open up the directions, you're going to see important information on the first page that you should definitely read through before you begin your unicorn. We do recommend that you have a skill level of intermediate to work this kit up. If not, we do encourage you to practice first before you try working up a kit such as Starry, just so that it doesn't become overwhelming to you. We do recommend that you use our crochet hook because the yarn that we provide you is enough to work up the unicorn using our directions with this hook. Also do a gauge swatch just to make sure that you are working up the pattern with the same tension that we have. Below the before you begin, you can see here as well our abbreviations. Yarns are going to be represented by a letter. We also see the stitch abbreviations. They're so important because they are going to help you understand all of the directions. You can see here as well the stitches you need to know. So I highly encourage you to read through these, make sure you understand all of the different stitches. If you need a refresher on any of these stitches, we do have a video on our YouTube channel that goes through exactly how to complete all of these. So you are going to work in a continuous round, and we're going to use a piece of yarn to mark the start of our round. I don't need a huge piece of yarn, maybe about 3 or 4 inches, and you can choose any color. I'm going to start with making the head. What I'm going to need is my yarn. The direction says with A, which is the white yarn, and my crochet hook. Okay, so you are going to create a slip knot, insert your hook, and then chain 2. So 1 and 2. Now I'm going to do single crochets back into that very first chain I made, which is now the second chain for my hook. Now we need to find that first stitch, and my first is right here. I'm going to lay down a piece of colored yarn to mark my start of round, and then I am going to insert into that very first single crochet that I made. And now I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around. So now for round 3, I'm going to go ahead and remove my stitch marker, and then I'm going to replace my stitch marker before I make my very first stitch. I am going to do a single crochet in 3 stitches and then 2 single crochets in the 4th stitch. So I have 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet, and now in this 4th stitch I'm going to do 2 single crochets into the same stitch to increase, and I am going to repeat that. Keep in mind that you're going to count every once in a while. Just make sure you have the correct number of stitches and you'll follow the directions to increase where you are supposed to. Now I am back to my stitch marker, which means that I have finished round 4, and for rounds 5 through 7 I'm going to do a single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and then start increasing again at round 8. You're going to feel your work starting to curve because of the increases that we're putting into the work. The side that faces you as you're working around is the right side or the outside of your unicorn, and then the other side will be the wrong side or the inside. And you're going to want the nose part to curve back towards the rest of the head. And as you can see, this is definitely curving inwards. I thought it might be useful if I show you how to place those eye markers for your unicorn. These markers are so important. So again, I'm going to move my purple marker, which is my beginning of round marker, up a stitch, and then I will single crochet for a number of stitches. And now before I do this very first increase, I'm going to place one of my pink eye markers. You do not want to lose this spot because again, this is where your unicorn's eye is going to go. And then I'm going to do 2 single crochets into the next stitch for my first increase. And then I'm going to increase 3 more times. At this point, I'm going to place another marker and then I want to single crochet for number of stitches. Follow your directions and work your way up through row 18. Keep in mind that you're going to want to count every once in a while. Just make sure you have the correct number of stitches, and you'll follow the directions to increase where you are supposed to, decrease where you're supposed to. While you are working, do not take the pink yarns out. They're going to stay because they're, again, marking your eyes, but you are going to move the purple yarn up every single time you complete a round. So the time has come to add the French knot eyes. I'm choosing to do this at row 17 before I begin my decreases because it'll give me a little bit more space to work in and work those eyes. There are a few things that you're going to need: black yarn, your tapestry needle, the head that you've been working on, and a pair of scissors. You can see where I have it marked to put my French knot eyes. I am going to take my black yarn and I want to thread this through my needle. I am then going to put this up inside and out the hole where my marker is. And you're going to wrap this around your needle 2 times. You are then going to take your needle and go back inside of the hole you just came out of. And when you do this, you're going to pull slowly and you will create your French knot eye. And the thing is if you pull too tight or you're not super satisfied with the way that it looks, it's really easy to pull out. But you can see there, I've created my cute little eye. Once I'm satisfied with the way that it looks, I'm just going to remove my marker. And then I will just trim my yarn off. Next up, we are going to work the cheeks. I'm going to thread my needle with pink yarn, skip 1 row below my French knot eyes, and then I'm gonna work the cheek on the row below. And we give you a diagram just to give you an idea where to center this. You can also look at the box and see how it looks on the box and decide what you like. I'm gonna work this basically over 3 stitches. So I'm gonna come out the first stitch, skip the second, and go in the third. And so there's gonna be my little cheek that I place below the unicorn eye. I'm not gonna worry about knotting this or anything, but if you're gonna give this to a child and that yarn might get pulled on, you may want to knot it. Now it is time to do the decrease rounds. So these are going to be rounds 18, 19, 20, and 21. I'll do the first decrease round with you, and then you'll just want to go ahead and complete the other 3 decrease rounds. Go ahead and move my yarn marker up to the next round. For round 18, we're going to single crochet in 3 stitches. And now it is time for me to decrease. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. That's going to take the 2 stitches and turn them into 1 stitch. In our pattern, whether it says single crochet 2 together or whether it says DEC, that means the same thing, which is you're going to complete that decreased stitch. So again, I'm going to single crochet 1, single crochet 2, single crochet 3, and then I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And that's that decrease. I'm going to repeat this and then work up rows 19 and 20, stuff the head, work row 21. I will do the last row of decreases with the head already stuffed because I don't want to try to push the stuffing through a very small opening. Here is my finished unicorn head. You can see the adorable little eyes and the little cheeks. I have stuffed it so that it's holding its shape, but I don't have it so far stuffed that it's pulling on the single crochets. When it comes to working the body, we're going to start at the neck and then we're going to come down and create the back and work around the body before we do some decreases and close. The neck starts very similarly to the head. You're going to start with a slip knot, insert your hook, and then you are going to chain 2. You're then going to work back into the second chain from your hook, and you are going to follow the directions to single crochet. Now what I'm going to do is place that stitch marker, find my first single crochet, and I am going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch so that I can increase. Very important at this point that you make sure you have the correct number of stitches. So I'm just going to go through really quickly and count and make sure that they are all here. And then I'm going to move my stitch marker up and I am going to start single crocheting. You're doing 1 single crochet in each stitch for 4 rounds. So I'm going to go ahead and work these 4 rounds up. So I have finished the rounds of the neck, and now we're ready to start the body of the unicorn. So the way that we're going to do this is we're actually going to create a chain to create the back, and then we're going to start working around the entire body. And so this is going to require us to chain and work single crochets back into that chain. And then we'll have to go around the body and then work into the back of the chain that we create. This will make more sense when we go to start. So one thing I do want to point out is that you may hear slightly different directions from what your kit says, depending on when you purchase your kit. For simplicity's sake, I recommend that you follow the directions that I provide as we begin to work up the body of the unicorn. So I'm going to start by chaining the back. And then I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from my hook. Now I'm going to single crochet so that I end up back by my stitch marker. So I left my beginning of round marker in there because it makes it easier to go back into that beginning of round stitch and single crochet. And you'll follow the directions and work around to the base of the chain that I just made. So you may want to go around and count little stitches and just make sure that you are good before you go on. As you can see, my beginning of round has changed to the base of the chain that we just made. Now I'm going to be working into the back loops. And if you look below the single crochets you made before are kind of like little gaps where the yarns cross that you can stick your crochet hook, and then your hook fits really nicely in there. Single crochet there, and then you're going to do single crochets working into the back loop. Follow the directions to work up 4 rounds, working around the entire body. Okay, at this point, you are ready to just elongate the body. So in order to do this, you're going to do 7 rounds where you just crochet in the round. You're going to complete rounds 11 through 17. And then we'll come back together to start to work the decreases. Okay, so I have 5 more rounds left of the body of my unicorn. So for the first decrease round, this is round 18, we're going to work a single crochet and then I'm going to decrease. And the way that I do this is by single crocheting 2 together. I finished off the body, and one thing I want to point out is that I left a tail because I'm going to use this tail to sew up the body after I stuff it. And all I'm going to do now is start to add in my stuffing. Now to do this, I'm just taking little bits and I'm just using my fingers to stuff it up inside the body. I put enough stuffing so that the object has form, but I don't put so much stuffing that it pulls on the stitches. I don't want the stitches to gap. If your object is overstuffed, generally you'll pull on the stitches a lot and you'll be able to really see a lot of the stuffing between the stitches. I think that that will be good. Okay, now let's talk about closing this up by whip stitching. One, it's an easy stitch to complete with the yarn and the needle. What you're going to want to do is thread your yarn, and then we're going to start on the side closest to you, insert into the first stitch, and then go across into the opposite stitch, and then pull the yarn through. And then you're just going to come back to the next stitch, insert, insert, and pull through. And you're going to keep working down the length of the unicorn. Okay, so there is my seamed body. Now, what I like to do when I get to the end here is I'm just going to put a couple knots, and that's just going to secure everything. Once you've knotted a couple of times, you're just going to pick a stitch, run your needle through, and you can come out the other side somewhere and pull that yarn through. That is just going to put that end in the body. And then we just need to take a pair of scissors and we will trim that excess yarn off. And there we are, the body is completed. We're going to be moving on to create the legs. About half of the leg is going to be yellow and then the other half will be done in white. So I'm going to start with the yellow yarn, and we are going to start this in a similar manner to the way we started the head. I'm going to create my slip knot, and then I am going to chain 2. And now I'm going to do single crochets into the second chain from my hook. For round 2, I'm going to increase by putting 2 single crochets into each of the stitches that I initially created. Round 2 is the only increase round on the leg, so for all of the rest of the rounds, I'm just going to go around placing 1 single crochet in the single crochets below. And so now I am at the second to last stitch of round 5, and I need to switch to the white yarn. And the way I do this is I start a single crochet with my yellow by inserting my hook, yarning over and pulling up a loop. And rather than yarning over and pulling through like I usually would, I'm going to complete the second yarn over with the white yarn. You're going to want to leave a pretty significant tail off to the right when you yarn over with this white yarn, because it's not attached to anything. So you want to make sure it doesn't pull back through. And then I'm just going to put the second yarn over, and I'm gently going to tug on the white and yellow yarns just to make sure everything's snug and secure. I'm going to move my stitch marker up, and then I'm just going to put a couple single crochets in for round 6 to help secure that white yarn down. You can see there my white yarn's getting a little loose. All I have to do is pull on the white strand and it'll tighten that right up. Once you have done a couple single crochets, that really secures that white yarn in, so you don't have to worry about it coming out. So I just finished round 9, so you can see here how you elongate the leg. So now what I'm going to do is chain 1 and pull up a long loop, trim that loop in half and pull out the excess. That'll give me my tail to allow me to sew it onto the body. So there's my finished leg with a tail to sew it on. So I do need to stuff the legs, and I want it to hold its form, but I don't want it to be so much stuffing that it's pulling on the stitches. So I think that's pretty good. Here are my 4 legs. They have all been stuffed and are ready to be sewn on to my unicorn. And I'm just going to go ahead and set these to the side. Next up, we have the ears. To complete the ears, you're going to start here at the edge of the ear and work your way down. And we're going to make 2 of these. To work up the ear, we're going to need the white yarn, our stitch marker, and our crochet hook. And we are going to start this in a similar manner to the way we started the leg. So there's my slip knot, slip my hook on. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to single crochet into the second chain from my hook. Now, in order to create the ear shape, we are going to be working increases, but not quite as many as we did for the leg. Rounds 2 through 6 are increase rounds, so follow the directions to work your way through those rounds, and we will continue with round 7. Now I just need to complete round 7 and round 8. These are just going to be single crochet rounds. I'm not increasing. I will do 1 single crochet in each stitch below. I am at the end of round number 8. I am going to chain 1, pull up a very long loop so that I have enough to sew that ear on, and then trim my loop, and there is my completed ear. For the horn, we are going to start from the bottom and using decreases work your way up. We are going to start this in a similar manner by chaining 2 and then single crochets into the second chain from my hook. But you might want to loosen your tension a little bit to make this a little easier to complete the decrease rounds at the top. So for round 2, you'll follow the directions to increase where you are supposed to. For round 3, 4, and 5, I'm just going to go around doing single crochets, not increasing or decreasing. For round 6, working up through round 11, I'm going to complete my decrease rounds. I just completed my last stitch of my horn, so now I am going to chain 1 and pull up a long loop just in case I decide that I want to run this back through the inside and sew it on that way. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. There is my finished horn. I definitely encourage you, if you don't like the way yours looks initially, try it again, adjusting your tension slightly, and you'll find that really affects the shape of it and the way that it looks. Okay, so now I'm working up the little curly cues for the mane and for the tail, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this. So you're going to need the purple, pink, and blue colors. You are going to start by creating a slip knot, inserting your hook, and chaining 1 row of chains. And now I'm going to start single crocheting from the second chain in my hook, and then I'm just going to keep single crocheting back all the way to the very beginning. And you will see very quickly that this is going to start curling. If you're not a tight crocheter, you are going to want to single crochet just a little on the tight side. You will see these curly cues form all on their own. So I'm going to go ahead and work this all the way back to the beginning, and then I will work up the ones for the tail as well. I am so excited. We're ready to assemble everything. So I have made all of the tail and mane pieces, the body and the head, my horn, my 4 legs, and my 2 ears. I've got my yarn needle, and we're ready to assemble. I would have your box on hand or your directions so you can refer back to the picture. First, I'm going to line everything up and make sure I'm happy with the way that it looks. I will use whip stitches. And I'm just going around seaming the head to the top of the neck. Just to make sure that you are doing this as evenly as possible, you're going to want to just go a little bit slower, adjust the head as needed, and make sure that every stitch is exactly where you need it to be to apply even tension to the head. Once I am satisfied with the way that my unicorn head looks, I am going to knot this just a couple times. Once you're done, best way to get rid of this end is just to run it down through a stitch and bring out the other side of the unicorn body. And then you can just pull this a little bit tight, trim it, and then when you let go, the yarn is just going to go right up into the body. There's Starry in her unicorn head. Oh, she looks so cute. I'm going to go ahead and attach the feet. Now this one is a little on the tricky side just because you want to make sure you get them as even as possible. Because I did the whip stitch seaming, it does make it a little easier because I have a nice seam where the middle of the body is. This leg does have a tail, so all I have to do is thread that tail onto my needle, find the spot where I want to attach it, and just like the head, I'm just going to go around and whip stitch this leg to the body. Do a couple of rounds of knots, and then I'll just run this yarn right inside the body like I did the pieces for the head. Trim. Now I'm going to attach the other legs using the exact same process. Now I'm ready to sew on the ears and the horn, and since I want the horn to be in the middle, I'm going to start there. Remember, I left this tail to help me sew it on. I'm going to run this down through the inside of the horn. One, it closes up that little hole at the top, and then as I stitch this, it will provide a little bit of tension to allow the horn to stand upright. I want this in the center of my unicorn's head. So after my first stitch, I do want to just check. I'm going to make sure that everything looks the way that I want it to. I'm just going to go around and whip stitch this to the head. At this point, I am going to knot this, and then just like the rest of the yarn, I will run it down inside of my unicorn. So there's Starry with her little horn. Let's talk about the ears. I'm actually going to fold the ear in half and seam it, and then I will attach the ear to the head. You could also just sew them on as they are. So that choice is up to you. Now I'm going to sew it on. When I start this one, I put the first stitch in towards the back a little bit. And so once I'm happy with where the ear is, then I'm just going to start going around and finishing up those stitches. Okay, I'm just knotting that stitch down, and then I will run the excess through the head. Now, when I go to do the other side, I do want to try to be as symmetrical as possible. So I find that if you get the first stitch where you want it to be, that does make it a lot easier in terms of ensuring that this is even. And my ears are done. There is Starry so far, and now is time to add the mane and the tail. So I'm going to start with the mane pieces. Take one of each color, and then I will be sewing them on by threading the 3 main pieces on the tip of my needle. And I will do 2 stitches and secure this on to the back of the head. So you can see here I completed the first round in the mane, and we're going to repeat this process at about the midway part of the head, and then repeat it again towards the base of the head. Then I will attach the tail the exact same way we did the main pieces. There is a little bump here from where the back was created, and that is a great place to attach the tail. So when you finish working up Starry, here's the finished product. How cute is she with her rosy little cheeks and the little French knot eyes? And I love, love, love the pastel colors of the mane and tail. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions or anything that you don't quite understand, definitely reach out to help@askacrafter.com, and we should be able to assist you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy creating Starry the Unicorn as much as I did.